I'd like to welcome everyone to the Comedy Factory Comedy Chat. As my friend Aceto's pouring a beer. I've got my co-host Jessica Leigh tonight. Special guest from the podcast Behind the Funny, which is a great podcast. They've had some great guests. Recently had Bob Marley on and had some great guests. I catch that. It's a really great podcast. And so today, start out this morning, I went to the dentist. I had a tooth fall out that had a screw on it. And it's happened in the past, and they've cemented it back in. So I figured, okay, my dentist is not there anymore, so I had to go to a new dentist. They'll just cement it back in, no problem. They tell me there's decay, they can't cement it back in. They said you got to go to an oral surgeon, get the root removed, and then we gotta put a implant. I said, well, how much is the implant? They said about $4,000 or $5,000.
One tooth. You could get two boobs for that.
I'm like, wait a minute.
You could get breast implants for that, John.
I called my old dentist. I'm going to see him in Quincy on Monday, and he said, I'll do it for half of that. Just come down here and see me. So I'm gonna drive to Quincy, and he's gonna do the whole thing for the next couple of weeks. I'll have it done for half the price. So
they're putting your teeth in with screws and cement. What auto garage do you go to?
Right.
I don't know what they call it. It's a tooth that they put in between my bridges, and I don't even know what you call it. It's got a screw on it.
It's a partial.
Yeah. It's a partial.
Yeah, it's a partial.
It came out, and that started my day.
They put a post in the jawbone, right?
Yeah.
They put a post in the jawbone, and then the tooth goes over the post.
Well, welcome to Dental Talk.
Yeah.
The new podcast from John Perrotta, Dental Talk.
Hey, listen. Yeah. You need to get dental done. I got a guy, half price.
I got a guy.
He's in Quincy. He's going to take a ride.
He's on a street corner. He's on a street corner in Quincy. He goes, what do you need, brother? What do you need, a molar? You need an incisor? He opens his jacket.
Hey, I made a call. I straightened it right out. I went from $5,000 to $2,500. Jessica Leigh, we're going to start with my co-host in crime. My therapist, my comedy therapist at night. She sees patients all week. She's still got time for me and the comedians at night. What's going on with you, Jessica? How you doing?
All three of you. I felt like I needed therapy tonight, so I came up to see Ace and Scott. So they're my therapist. They're my comedy therapist. So I'm your comedy therapist, and then I have to have comedy therapists. And I just
it's like The Sopranos when Dr. Melfi had to go to her doctor. Right?
Yes,
that's me and Scott. We're that guy.
And Ace has a therapy dog that
Yeah. Well, I did. My therapy dog passed away.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh
I'm sorry.
God. Talk about bringing up the most horrible thing possible. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry. She was old. She was 12, at least 12. We got her as a rescue, but she was an American bulldog, and she had just been having a lot of trouble walking the past couple of months.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
We took her to the Ocean State vet clinic last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and there was just nothing that they could do for her. So unfortunately, you had met Lola when you came to the garage, right, for the podcast.
Lola was awesome. Oh my God.
She was.
Yeah,
she was a sweetheart.
Sorry to hear.
I know. It's like we're not even 2 minutes in.
Okay. I'm gonna pause my picture now so I can cry. Hold on.
No.
I'm kidding. I'm fine. It's okay.
I'm gonna have to find a new therapist because mine's gonna fire me. Mine's gonna resign.
Hey,
Never.
My grandmother died a couple years ago. Can we talk about that?
I want to go back to my tooth. Forget the dog and your grandma.
Yeah, let's talk about teeth. So, John,
I'm crying about my tooth.
My tooth is dead, brother. Stop talking about your dead dog.
$700 a piece. I can pay for this thing.
Yeah, we'll do a fundraiser.
Start a GoFundMe. Yeah, do a funny for funds for me.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, if we could.
Listen, we got Scott Higgins, Aceto. Great podcast you guys have been running. How long's it been going now, you guys?
We're in season 4. We just started season 4, so a little over 3 years, 150 episodes.
Wow.
And, I got to take my hats off to Ace right now and really give him a lot of credit because he's really been booking some amazing guests this year because he books all the guests and then I do the technical side and the recording and all that. But he's been lining up some amazing guests. You mentioned Bob Marley, which was such a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Jessica was on earlier this year, and that was a great conversation with Jess. She was a lot of fun to talk to and a really interesting conversation. But we just today, episode came out with Paul Barclay. He was the one that founded the Comedy Connection in Boston in 1978, and he was really the start of the boom in Boston. And it was just there were so many great conversations, and we had an international conversation.
Yes, John, you'll appreciate this one. Guess who we spoke to?
Who?
All the way from Sydney, Australia. Your friend and mine,
Benny.
Al Benny. Yes,
Al Benny. That guy cost me a room.
Yes, we talked
about Dave's Bar. Did you talk to him about it?
Yes,
we did. We did.
He told the story.
Dave's Bar and Grill. We had a great room on Sunday nights. I had a good budget. The comedians, I think, ate half price or drank for free. We had a beautiful gig going. A year and a half. Al Benny goes up. He says every word under the sun that you shouldn't say. Well, I got nothing but complaints. The next day, the owner told me, that's it. I never talked to Al Benny since, and I want to.
Well, you got to listen to his episode when it comes out, John, because he lays a little bit more groundwork, because obviously there's two sides to every story, and that's what we love about doing the podcast is we have had people tell their side of one story, and then someone else come on and tell their side of the same story. So you got to listen because
what was his side of the story? I like the
It's long.
It's long, but it has to do with a woman that wouldn't shut up, wouldn't listen, was disruptive to the show, and he said he didn't handle it totally the right way, but he definitely used the word that was not appropriate.
Words.
But the owner wasn't there. So the owner got a lot of backstory from the staff that was on. Right. And that woman that was disrupting the show was the one that was complaining to the staff and calling the staff names and stuff like that.
I literally had a girl, the owner told me, a girl that worked there went home and cried to her mother. Cried to her mother.
Well,
and that was it. That was the end of that room.
But John, he did say he honestly felt bad afterwards. He did.
Well, tell him to send me a check because I think he owes me about $15,000 by now.
Hey. He'll give it to you in Australian dollars. How's that?
I would love to talk to Al Benny about this many years later and figure out what happened. And I was horrified. I couldn't get him off the stage. You know when someone's on a stage and then all of a sudden you realize I got to get him off and it's too late. It's like the atomic bomb dropped. That's it. The atomic bomb dropped. How are you going to get him off? It's too late. It doesn't matter.
The mushroom cloud is filling the sky, right?
Yeah, there's no way. So I just stood there and watched him, and it got worse and worse and worse. I was horrified by the minute. I didn't know what to do, and I lost a room.
Yeah. And they actually, you're right, they were a good room because I remember playing there. I mean, I shouldn't say it was a great room. It was a good room. The crowds, when they listened, were fantastic. But the owner and the staff treated you great. And I remember them. They used to love the comedy so much. They had our headshots all around the bar. Yeah. They used to, if you played there, they'd ask you for a signed headshot. And I went in not long after, maybe 6 months after they stopped doing comedy, and there were no more headshots. They just totally did away with any inkling of a comic.
I called him. I've written him letters, done everything to try to get back in that room.
Sent them flowers.
He don't want to hear it. He don't want to hear it.
Hey, he is one step under Frank Santarelli because Frank Santarelli got the town of Rockland, Massachusetts to pass an ordinance that stand-up comedy was not allowed within city limits after one of his shows.
Yeah.
Al didn't get Warwick to ban comedy, so he's not as bad as Santarelli.
That was just it was a fun room. We had fun. Yeah. I mean, when it was a Sunday night, you could get a budget. It wasn't gigantic, but it was probably back then it was like a $400 budget, which that's a lot back then.
Pretty decent back then.
Quite a few years ago. So the headliner made some money. We all made a little bit of money, and I think they had a deal where we ate or drank for nothing or something. It was great, Jessica. It was a fun room. We all looked forward to it. It wasn't easy. Some nights they were tough. They were tough, you know what I mean? But it was going good, man, until Al Del Penny came in.
John, I don't believe that you've ever had a room that was tough.
I was just thinking of that.
I've had some really good rooms and some really bad rooms.
And we've played all of them.
I take credit for the good and the bad.
Yes, you
Listen,
do. Yes, you do.
John, you know that we have a segment on our podcast. We end every podcast with a funny bad gig story. And it's that story of that gig that is so bad.
And how many times does my name come up?
Well, that's it. It's so bad that years later you get further away from it. And when you're telling war stories in the green room and someone says about this bad gig they did, and you're like, oh, really? Hold my beer. I've got one better. And I'd say at least 50 to 60% of the people will say, so I was doing this Perrotta room. And we always say, we love you, John. We in conjunction, Scott and I both say it at the same time. We love you, John, you know, because we know it's going to come up. It's always going to be, a lot of times it's a Perrotta gig. But you know what? I'd kill for one of those gigs right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, my God.
Any gig is looking good right now.
Yeah.
I know.
Any gig. If you ever told me this pandemic would, I mean, January, February, I was busy. The 27th, I sold Lemongrass. The 28th, Spirito. Were you on that one, Scott?
Yeah. That was a great show.
It was awesome. We had 200 people.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I had Ace coming up there. And
I was supposed to be there June 6th.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, my son's telling me, Dad, there's this virus coming. You know, it's going to be bad. You got to stock up on food. Your shows are going to get canceled. I said, there's no way. And all of a sudden, my show started getting canceled, and I was like, he was right, which I couldn't believe it at the time. I thought it was going to be like a flu, you know. I didn't think anything of it, you know. We've
talked about it on the podcast. We've both said it. This was probably my busiest spring.
Yep, mine too.
Years. I had dates every day that I wanted to work or was available to work. I had work, and I got decimated once March happened. I think my last one was February 29th.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I was booked right through the end of May, almost every weekend. I had nights with 2 shows going on in the same night. It was the best spring I ever had in 18 years. And it was just gone, just absolutely gone. And majority of them canceled, a few rescheduled for the fall, but those probably won't happen. And, you know, a few other ones are waiting to see what happens. But it's just, you know, I've been talking about it, and we've talked about it on the podcast, John. New York Times has been doing a series of articles about, you know, the entertainment industry and how this is affecting it. And they've done a few on stand-up in particular. They said our stand-up clubs, as we know them, now dead with this pandemic, because people are not going to be comfortable being in, you know, groups that are tightly packed, and comedy clubs are tightly packed together. And, you know, your theaters will probably still be okay because your big name people are there and they have their built-in audience. Fundraisers will probably still be okay, but the actual comedy clubs, are they going to survive this? And they're predicting that most of them won't.
I mean, I see the Comedy Connection is opening back up now, and they've got some shows under a tent.
Which
is
great.
They got Tommy Davidson coming. It said inside.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know how many they're allowed, but they're going to do inside shows, you know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, hopefully they do survive.
Yeah.
I think right now we're at what, is it 66% in Rhode Island capacity for indoor shows?
See, most of the restaurants I do, Lemongrass, that's on hold. Asia Grill doesn't want to do anything till there's a vaccine. Spiritos, I'm waiting to hear from. Venue 131 in Cumberland, they don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And Ying Dynasty, Dartmouth, they don't want to do anything. A lot of them don't want to do it.
And the problem is, there's not going to be a widespread vaccine for a couple of years. You know, I mean, the earliest you'll see a vaccine is early next year, but it's not going to be widespread production, because the one that's the candidate right now, that Moderna that you see on the news, that one is the earliest in development, or the fastest in development. But it's a small company. They don't have the capacity to manufacture. You know, you're going to need billions of doses of vaccine to cover. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of them don't have it. You know,
I was thinking comedy might come back like next fall, where it comes, but it might be later than that.
Yeah, unless people, you know, unless unless we slow the progression of the disease and people socially distance. And, you know, I mean, it's a tough thing. I see both sides of every story. I think, you know, Jess, you could probably speak to this as far as like the mental health costs of being quarantined and being socially isolated. We're very, very social people.
Yeah.
And the problem is people are losing their minds. People are truly, you know, if they had latent mental illness, it's coming out because of this. And
there's talk about, and I kind of disagree with this because I do think that it's going to fall under the category of PTSD anyway, but there is talk about them creating a diagnosis that's specifically based on the pandemic. But I feel like you know, the PTSD rates are going to really skyrocket. And already some, you know, signs of some, you know, adjustment was already the first one. And then, you know, there's definitely that, you know, early anxiety. And then, you know, it's that down the road type thing. Yeah. So, I'm taking a staycation next week because if I don't take my time, I'm going to lose my time.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, what am I going to do now with a whole week off of like not having to run around like crazy in my apartment? I don't know. Like it's such a weird time. But yeah, it's definitely been like, you know, for mental health wise, like things aren't really going so good. And this is like, I feel like just the starting point of like what this can do for people mental health wise. And like for the next, like, you know, probably for the rest of my life, my job's going to be cut out, but it's, you know, but it's definitely going to be, that part is just beginning. Even if there was a vaccine tomorrow, like I think the damage has already been big enough.
Well, and there's so much misinformation out there that people don't understand. Like even when they say, you know, yes, normally it takes 10 years to develop a vaccine, test it, go through all the legal and loopholes and hurdles and stuff like that. And yeah, they are accelerating it. But it's not at the cost of safety. They're still doing the same amount of safety studies with the same amount of people. What they're doing is instead of doing phase 1 trials, stopping, looking at the data, then doing phase 2 trials, stopping, looking at the data, which, you know, when you go through phase 1, 2, and 3 trials, that takes literally 10 years before it gets licensed. And what they're doing now is they're overlapping. So they're starting with phase 1, and while phase 1 is tailing off, they're starting phase 2. So that's helping to accelerate. Plus, they've taken away a lot of the government red tape for it. So it's not that, you know, they're rushing it and they're not looking for safety. They are. But unfortunately, you know, you see it on social media. There's so much misinformation out there. And I mean, honestly, I look at people that I thought I knew, and I'm looking at them and some of the posts, I'm like, you really need to go back to 6th grade science because you don't understand any of this, you know? It's crazy. And to see the conspiracy theories that come out, it's crazy. And all of a sudden, I never thought I knew people who believed in flat earth. I'm sorry. I did not think my group of friends believed in it. And now all of a sudden I'm seeing flat earth and all these other crazy things. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
I became dumber reading your post.
Well, Joe Rogan recently on his podcast said that he believes comedy should be labeled, or comedy clubs should be labeled essential services. He goes, because think about that guy that has a high stress job and once a month or every other week, he goes to the comedy club to blow off steam. And those laughs and everything is how he just kind of releases all that anxiety and everything. And now he can't go. And he hasn't gone in months. And he has no way of, you know, that, you know, letting all that go and getting that release and everything like that. And he feels that comedy is really, really important to a lot of people.
Comedy is, but it needs to change. The environment needs to change, because you still need to have social distancing. You know, you still need that.
I'm also thinking of like just people being able to be relaxed enough to enjoy like what's going on stage, because like there's like a couple of things that are opening back up, you know, and I'm like, I already booked the appointment to like go and get my nails done, like something just very simple for next week. And I'm like, do I really want to do it? Like, is this really worth it? Like, you know, do I really want to go out and like, you know, sit there and like, it's weird because I'm like, oh, this is probably going to be fine more than likely. And it's something relaxing. But in the back of my head, I'm like, was it the right thing to do? I don't know, you know, and
you just have to take the right precautions, wear the masks. And, you know, again, you know, and you see all the debates back and forth on the masks, and the masks aren't to protect you from getting sick. If you're wearing the mask, it's not to protect you from getting sick. It's so that if you cough and you're, the problem with this, and I don't know, John, I don't know if you wanted to go down this rabbit hole, but you know,
We're down it now. we went from Al Del Bene down this rabbit hole.
It's on the dentist.
Well,
should have
you
stuck
know,
with the dentist.
I work in public health, so I'm kind of, it's a hot button for me. You know, it's so that it's not spread. It's so that if I am asymptomatic, so I'm not showing symptoms, but I'm infected with the disease, and I cough or I sneeze or I clear my throat, the mask is keeping my germs to me. That's the reason. That's the reason for wearing masks. It's not to protect you from getting anything, and it's not perfect, but it's better than not wearing the mask. And yes, it sucks. And yes, it's hard to breathe. And I'm sure, you know, there's something called, and Jess and I are going to geek out for a second now. There's something called confirmation bias. And what confirmation bias is you form an opinion based on a feeling that you have. It's an emotional based bias. It's an emotional based opinion. And then what happens is you look for evidence to support your opinion, and you ignore all the evidence that doesn't support your opinion. And that's what we see. That's when you start seeing people with the pictures of the mask that says it's not going to protect you from COVID. It's, you know, they're just gathering evidence for what they believe, and both sides are doing it. It's not just one side or the other. It's just something that you see so much of on social media, and it's hard to watch.
I can usually see, I'm usually like a lot like you, Ace, where I can see like a lot of different sides to a situation, you know, whereas, you know, it's like, and
it's not cut and dry.
Exactly. I'm seeing a lot of that lately across the board of just everything being so extreme of like, this is what it is. No, this is what it is. I'm like, it's actually somewhere right in the middle and kind of over here, but okay. Like, you know, in the mask thing, I saw something that somebody posted that I really liked of like, hey, and it was very humble, like, hey, if there's a chance that like me wearing a mask is going to keep other people safe, like, and we're not 100% sure whether it is or it isn't, like, what is the harm in doing that? Like, it's going to save somebody's life. Like, and
did you see the meme? An epidemiologist came up with this meme, and it shows, here's what wearing a mask is. If you are naked and someone else is naked and you pee on that other person, they're going to get wet. If you're naked and the other person isn't naked and you pee on the other person, they're still going to get wet, but their clothes are going to absorb it. But if you're wearing clothes and you pee, you're not going to get pee on the other person. That's what wearing a mask does. It's basically, it's so simple and it's funny. And I saw that spread around for a little while, but that's the concept. So
why don't you just hold your pee until you get to the bathroom?
Well, that's,
you know, we're adults. You can't hold it until you get to a bathroom.
Well, I think they're talking about the virus in that sense, Scott.
That doesn't make
Scott's
sense.
not a medical person.
Now we're gonna change things because I want to make sure I ask Scotty. I want to stop talking about peeing on people.
Yeah, because that you got to pay extra for that,
and all this other stuff.
Sense. I mean,
I know.
I can't disagree with him. He made sense.
Thank you.
I want to ask Scotty about the Bradley playoffs because recently he had a little GoFundMe, and I donated to, and I performed there once. It was an old vaudeville theater. It was great. So what's going on with that, Scotty?
It's a 120-year-old theater, vaudeville theater, that got restored years ago, and they started doing plays and musicals and all kinds of things. And back in 2014, 14, I proposed a comedy night to them, and the first show we did was myself, Ace, Mike Murray, and Dr. Jay Sute, and we had about 250 people. And then within 2 or 3 shows later, we sold out. And like Johnny, you came on, and we were sold out that night, and we've been selling out ever since. But the whole community loves that theater. But this year, obviously, with the virus, it just shut the place down completely. Just before our first comedy show of the year, literally the week before is when everything broke. So we never had any comedy shows, but it also killed all their plays, their musicals. They had some musical acts coming in. It just shut everything down. So they're basically a nonprofit because nobody gets paid, but they do make an income which supports the theater, pays for the bills. But they sell bills. They sell electricity. They still had heat in the winter. They still have to pay for water. They still have taxes. They still have everything else. So they had no income coming in. So we did a few different fundraisers. On Friday nights, we do a virtual variety show that I host. I donate my time and I go in and I do like a 5-minute monologue up front, and then we introduce some musical acts and we have some fun with it, and we ask people to donate during the shows. And we actually had one person that was watching the show. She was very generous offer. She said if we raised $5,000, she would match it. Now this woman was a Patriots cheerleader in the 70s. And she made the announcement in an old cheerleading outfit. So I said, I'll tell you what, folks, if we raise the $5,000 and she matches it, I will come out in a Patriots cheerleading outfit and do a cheer for you. Well, that is happening this Friday night.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I got to tune into this.
This Friday night, 7:00. If you go to the Bradley's Facebook page and you click on the live event, the opening number will be myself and this woman, Christine, doing a dance number that she choreographed, and I will be in a homemade Patriots cheerleading.
I was going to say, no offense, Scott. I love you. You're my co-host, my partner in crime. But what Patriots cheerleader uniform was going to fit you?
No, you are correct. The costume designer at the Bradley, it made
okay. All right, good.
She made this for me. It is very subdued.
Two-piece?
Well, let's put it this way. It looks like I'm from Make-A-Wish, and being allowed on the field with the cheerleaders. That's kind of the best way for me to describe it. And I do have a very good hairpiece that I'll be wearing as well. But I do have the official Patriot cheerleader pom-poms. Yeah, I do have the official ones. So we're gonna do that because we raised over $10,000 between the two. But that still wasn't enough to get them through to the end of the year. So I did one online, and I was hoping to raise a couple $1,000s to help them, and I couldn't believe the comedians, the people in the comedy community that stepped up and donated, and we raised $2,900 on that one. Which great. I'll be giving them that check this Friday because the rest of the money cleared today from Facebook, and I'll be able to give them that check this Friday. And it was fantastic. They now have enough to make it pretty close to the end of the year. They're going to go through. They got enough to cover through November. In August, see, right now in Connecticut, you can have 50 people indoors, including the performers and the staff. So there's no reason to do anything there. You can do 150 outside, including performers and staff. But that's supposed to loosen up a bit in July. So in August, they're doing a concert in the park in Putnam, 1 block away from the theater, and they want to do a comedy show in the park. And those will be the last 2 fundraisers, hopefully, to help us get over the top to get to the end of the year. And then 2021, hopefully, everything's lifted and we can roll out.
That's the scary part of this whole pandemic is the Bradley Theater having problems, a lot of other restaurants, comedy clubs.
Yeah.
When the dust clears, we don't know what's going to be gone and
what's going to be
here. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's tough.
Yeah, they just had no money coming in for their operating budget, and they needed about $25,000 to cover the average expenses through the end of the year between, you're paying for the place and all the expenses that they have. And we're little more than halfway there, and between those 2 concerts that night, because the town of Putnam has been great, they're going to put in Wi-Fi in the park so we can stream the shows, and we can do something where people could pay to watch it at home, as well as the 150 that could be there watching it live. And the town's going to donate all that. They're going to donate people to help run the shows. I mean, people are really stepping up and doing a lot. And I see this a lot in a lot of places. We had Rick Jenkins on the podcast, and he did a GoFundMe to help his staff because, wait staff, they're not making any money. right now, and he had people like, you know, Louis C.K. donated to it and put a you know, bunch of money in it to help his staff out and stuff like that.
Oh, that's great.
You know, you just hear these stories everywhere, you know, of people helping out right now, and that's one of the positive things that you see with all this. Because, you know, we were talking about the stuff earlier, and I was talking with Ace last night. Every day you just hear all this negative stuff on the news and everything about the, you know, where the counts are and everything. That I like to look at some of the positive things that are happening too, and I like the communities that have come together to help everybody out. And, you know, that's, you know, me helping the Bradley out is a way of me focusing on something that's positive, you know, and keeping that mind track.
And that's a huge part of it. And I actually had a conversation with somebody about something similar. You know, of that, like, I was like, you know, what is the goal here? You know, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, and I want to be on that part of it, of going out and like, how can I help here? Like, how can I be helpful in like what's going on, so that we can all, you know, come together and like, you know, move on. And like, it's, you know, so that's kind of where I've been like trying to channel my energy into doing that too, in terms of like, you know, social work, mental health, and like all sorts of stuff, is trying to figure out where the needs are and going to try to do that. And that's really cool that like you picked that theater that like, you know, probably like, you know, really, really, really needed the support, you know, and probably means a lot to a lot of people, and then just focused on that one thing, you know, and that's really
well, like, I grew up with that theater. It was a movie theater when I was a kid. It became a play theater later on. I've been doing comedy shows there. Their support's been great, so they mean a lot to me. So I wanted to help them out.
I had a blast the night I was there.
Oh, John, and you had a great set. We left the lights up a little bit so you could talk to the crowd, and the crowd loved you. And you know, but the people that go to the shows just love comedy. They love it.
They were very receptive.
Yes, they were. So we'll see how receptive they are after they see me in a cheerleader outfit on Friday.
If it goes good, Scott, I might be booking you out.
Hey, that's
as
okay.
A cheerleader.
The hope is I'll be dating a football player by Sunday. Yeah.
Scott, we got to go back to where I met you. It was at the station, unfortunately, where the fire wound up happening. It was Mike Flynn, I think it was, at an open mic.
Yep, Flinzo was
working it. Patrice O'Neill was there, and different guys would stop in. But
Flinzo had all these contacts with all these comics that he would get to stop in this crappy little place in Warwick where we were doing this comedy night. It was amazing. Everybody he would ask and they would come, and it was, you know, we got, you know, as new comics, we get to see these guys, and it was amazing. And we just had but it was a tough room. It was a tough room because it was usually all comics and a few drunk guys. And I remember there was one night we had two drunk guys that purposely moved their seats up front just to yell and heckle everybody that went up there. And Flinzo was hosting, and they ruined his set. And then Dan Hershon went up, and they're ruining his set. And then I forgot who went up after Dan, but they did the same thing. So Flinzo goes, "You want me to say anything to those guys?" And I went, "Nah, it is what it is. Just bring me up." And he brought me up, and I don't know what it was. I was getting pissed. And when they yelled at me, I just went in attack mode. And I
went off.
I scrapped my entire set list that night and just attacked these two guys. And I was talking about shoving the mic stand up their ass and doing a puppet act with them. And I was just going off for like 10 minutes straight. And I at the end, I was like, well, I didn't even get to try any of my jokes out tonight, but I guess that's my time. And I leave and I walk off. And as I walk off, this guy comes up to me that I never met before. And he goes, "Brother, that was great. Oh, that was awesome the way you handled those guys. Hit my card, give me a call. I'd love to use you sometime." And
that's when we first met.
And my first paid gig was the Castle Cinema.
The Castle Cinema was your first paid gig, and we did that. Yeah.
Downstairs room with the Lincoln Continental seats.
That was a nice room.
Yes, John Turco was the headliner, and I was on that show, and that was my first actual paid gig.
Wow. So I gave you your first paid gig.
Yes, you did.
Wow, that's cool.
And that was a blast. I did many shows at the Castle. That was so much fun. And even when we moved upstairs and started doing it upstairs.
We had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun. And then I met Ace at Periwinkle's.
Yeah.
When it was upstairs where the keg room was.
Okay.
I remember meeting you. I remember meeting you over there. I didn't know you well, and we were in one of the shows, and I got to know you little by little. Yep. And so we're going back to 91.
Yep.
91.
You had me at one of the first rooms that you had me at was the Great Imposter. You remember the Great Imposter in Warwick?
Yeah.
And that was a great room, though. That was a great comedy room.
Oh,
and then you had me at the infamous Old McDonald's Chicken Farm, brother.
Yeah,
Out in Swansea.
Hey, the Great Imposter. One night we had a benefit. I had Tom Carter and Bob Marley. I always like to tell the story. They were back to back. They were like 4 and 5. Try to get them two in the same show now. It ain't gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Oh, forget it. Yeah.
And then the other room that you was the Great Imposter, Old McDonald's Chicken Farm. I had guys like Ed the Machine Regine, Tom Carter, Bob Marley, Bill Burr. Jesus, Cheryl Vendetti, all different acts. It just goes on and on. We were only there a couple of years, but we were doing it. I don't know, it was every month or every 2 months. We had a lot of acts come in. You know, it was great. One night I remember was that was when I come up with the idea. All you can eat, or you can laugh. They ran out of bread. Everybody was all the comedians were joking, and it's all you can eat, or you can laugh. We got no bread. And then some people that had bread, they were throwing the bread.
Throwing it. I remember that. I think I was on that night. I remember
it was a mess.
John, we talked to Ed Regine last week. He's going to be in an upcoming episode, so you can hear that when we talked to Ed the Machine Regine recently.
I did a bachelor party with Ed, and he was pretty famous in Rhode Island, and I was a nobody. And here I am doing a bachelor party with Ed the Machine Regine. Then I had him come to Old McDonald's Chicken Farm. I didn't know Ed well, but I'm Facebook friends with him, and I know him well enough through the years before he left.
Yeah. He's been doing really well.
He's had a great career.
Now that he's in LA, he's actually, it's funny, when we were talking to him, he was bringing up more acting jobs than comedy jobs.
Yep.
You know, so you could tell where his passion is. I mean, he started he said he started as like a prop character comic. So, I think doing the character acting that he's doing right now is where he's really happy, you know, and it's not, he's not big roles. Like he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He played the maitre d' at the restaurant when they had the meeting at the restaurant. But, you know, he's in a Tarantino movie. How many people could say they've been in a Tarantino movie? So it's been really cool. I have to say one of the great things about this podcast is it's been really cool reconnecting with people who you haven't seen in a while. You know, Scott said it. We had Bob Marley on about a month ago.
Yeah, I love Bob Marley,
We were talking to him, and we were, you know, by the end of the podcast, we're like, hey, next time we'll get you on, but we want to talk to you in person. We'll come up to camp. And he goes, that'll be a great idea. I'll tell you what, I'll get a gig up here. He goes, the three of us will be on the show. We'll make a little scratch. We'll come back, have some beers up at camp. I'm like, he goes, and we'll do the podcast. I'm like, that sounds like an awesome weekend, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I was supposed to open for him at the Connection, and I got sick. This is going back a few years ago, and I wound up getting sick. I couldn't do it, but I went up to the Connection anyway, and his friend was putting T-shirts out or whatever. I said, hey, can you ask Bob if he would talk to me? And he was in his trailer. He had like a mobile trailer or whatever. And so, Johnny, I went in there and talked to him for like 25 minutes, and you know, about old times. I used to book Bob Marley for like $150.
Yeah.
I always got to tell the story. If you guys didn't hear it, I booked Bob Marley to be at this gig, and it was this girl I knew. She was a heavy girl. She ran this organization, Heavy Women and the Guys That Like Them. So
really?
They get a bunch of girls like that are overweight, like
heavy
me.
hotties.
Yeah, and then they get guys that would come that like them, and they wanted to have a comedy night. So I said, all right, I got Bob Marley, George Ham from Maine, and myself. So they told me, whatever you do, no fat jokes. I said, no problem. So I told George Ham, I told Marley, I go up, I do 10 minutes, I'm hosting, I bring up the next guy, George Ham, he does well. And I bring up Bob Marley, it's going to be great. Bob Marley went off 45 minutes of fat jokes, one after the other. This is a classic Bob Marley story of my life. He told nothing, and I'm in the back thinking, this is one of my first gigs I put together. It's over.
Yeah, right.
My career's over. Bob Marley ruined my career, and they loved him. They no matter what, they loved him.
And I guarantee, John, it was all made up on the spot.
Yep.
Probably
That's how
so.
quick he is. Crazy. I watched him one night. We were working together at the Comedy Connection in East Providence years and years ago. It was a double headliner show. And before the show, he goes, look at this. Look at this. I got a goddamn pimple. He had this big pimple on his nose. John, he did 15 minutes on the pimple. Just made up and had the audience dying laughing. And he was just going off on the pimple. It was just, he's one of the most prolific people I've ever, him, Paul D'Angelo's another guy that's like that. Just some of the most prolific comedy writers you're ever going to meet. And that's what's been cool about this podcast is really getting to reconnect with people and talk to them about it.
See, I've always wanted to do a podcast. I looked into it a couple of times. I almost did, and I was doing a lot of gigs. And I'm like, then when the pandemic hit, after a couple of months, I seen some guys doing Zoom stuff, and I said, I don't really want to do a podcast. And then I tried to go Zoom, where you go Facebook Live.
Yeah.
No matter what I did, it wasn't Jessica knows.
Jess is laughing.
I saw that
for like 2 or 3 weeks.
I saw
like
one of
2-second episodes.
I wound up getting I got a gigablast from Cox Cable, the best internet in the world. I figured I'm all set now. We go on Facebook Live, cut out 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I bought a new laptop. We go on 3 minutes, cut out. Finally, my friend said, "Why don't you record it on Zoom and upload it to Facebook?" You know what? It's going smooth. It's not a podcast, but I'm connecting with all you guys, all my friends.
Yeah, it's
seeing people.
Similar.
We're being creative.
I'm having fun. It's getting me through the pandemic. It's the best thing I could have did. Jessica's been helping me a lot, and
it's funny
nice
because
people.
It's funny because I remember being on Facebook and seeing Jessica Leigh and John Perrotta are live, and I click on it, and then all it was the two of you going, "Are we live? Yeah, I think we're live. Oh, I think so. All right. I don't see nothing. Can anyone see us? Throw a comment in there if you could see us." And then it would cut out. And then 5 minutes later, you'd be live again. It was just
this is much more calm for me. I record. It took me 2 weeks to figure it out. I record on Zoom, upload it to Facebook. We get some views. People are watching. They're having fun.
Listen, man, we are constantly laughing about the fact that John Perrotta has a Zoom show on the internet because up until 4 years ago, when you did a Perrotta gig, you still got a stack of flyers in a manila envelope with the Comedy Factory thing to promote shows as if we were going out on street corners. So the fact you've come like light years ahead by doing a Zoom show.
If you ever told me I'd be doing a Zoom thing, I'd say, you're crazy.
You're crazy.
That's crazy. It took me a while to figure it out, Scotty.
Remember your Perrotta packets, Ace, with the big flyers and a bunch of the small flyers to go around and hand it out?
To go around, And what was it? Jeff Hopkins drew those people laughing at the table.
Remember that?
25 years ago. Well, because I saw Jeff Hopkins a couple of years ago when we had the roast of Brian Mulhern, the Rhode Island Comedy Hall of Fame roast of Brian Mulhern. He's good friends with Jeff Hopkins, and Jeff started drawing, and I'm like, wait a minute. He goes, yeah, I used to do comedy a long time ago. I go, wait a minute. You're the kid that used to draw, and you drew things for John Perrotta, didn't you? He goes, yeah. I said, it's all the laughing people around the table. He goes, yeah. He goes, how do you remember that? I said, because John was using them up until 2 years ago. I was still getting flyers in the mail.
That was on my business card. The people around the table laughing at Jeff Hopkins drew in 1992.
It was crazy.
I just kept it.
That's so funny.
Now on my business card, I actually got a picture, so things have advanced.
Hey, look at you, brother.
Zoom shows, pictures on his business card.
He's going to be handing out hologram business cards in a year. You're going to hold it, and it's going to be a hologram of him going, hey, look at this. This place is nuts. This is crazy.
I just hope everything gets back. I just want everything to get back. I want to get back to where it was. We got Funny for Fun's back, the Comedy Factory, the Connection, everybody. I want everybody. I want it to be like it was, you know. It may be. It's going to be a while. I miss it. The Bradley Theater and all the places, the good and bad. Jessica hosted a bowling alley for me. Did you? Providence, the Strikers Strikers Lounge, and there was like 25 comics. I said, Jess, host the rest of this. Will you? Here's another few bucks.
There's also a couple of things I picked up on in this chat. Is that, John, you did give me my first paid gig. I'm about 90% sure of that. But also, my comedy hell story was also one of your shows.
See?
Which one was
I'm telling you.
That was Milestone, when I broke up with the audience.
Oh, yeah.
It was the worst
That's right.
day of life. And I showed up at that show, and there was like a table of people, and I'm, forgetting what I'm even talking about, like a couple of minutes into my set, and I was like, guys, this isn't working anymore.
It's not you, it's audience, me, right?
And
Didn't
all
you
I
say
hear
it?
is comics like start laughing on the other side of the curtain, because it was one of those nights where like you just give up. But the comics understand why you gave up. So
right.
And that's like, I don't know, I feel like that just makes it like a lot better when like you've got a group of comics that are like willing to laugh about like that with you, like when you are able to be that vulnerable and have like just a bad night.
Yeah. My goal is to make the audience laugh. But if there's nights where the audience isn't laughing, if I can get laughs from the other comics, then I'm golden. I'm happy. In fact, I think we talked about it when you told that story. Scott told a story of the Funny for Fun show that we did where this lady just kept yelling shit out. And Brad Pierce, when he was up there, she was yelling shit out. And she just wasn't giving up. Like, no matter how much people, how much the comics were trying to shut her down, she just wouldn't stop. And then finally, I stopped, and I went behind the curtain, and I had the wireless mic, and I started talking to myself. And I was like, why am I doing this?
Didn't you say to the crowd, excuse me for a second?
I said, excuse me for 1 second. I went in the back of it, and I'm on the mic, and I'm going, why am I here? Why am I doing this? It's Sunday night. I could be watching Game of Thrones. I got some lady yelling shit out. I don't even know what she's not even making sense. I really do think she's on bath salts. Because Brad in his set, when she yelled out, he was like, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you're on bath salts. And the crowd laughed. And I think I probably was behind the curtain for a good 4 or 5 minutes, just riffing. And Brad was laughing. Mike Murray was laughing. It was just fun. Or Scott was on that show, right? Were you on that show?
With you and Brad.
It was me, you, and Brad. That's right. Yeah. It was, so yeah, I mean, our goal is always to make the audience laugh. But if the audience isn't going to laugh, or you're having that kind of night, if you could get the comics to laugh, then at least you're like, all right, it wasn't a total waste.
Right.
Yeah. And we've had a lot of great gigs and a lot of crazy gigs.
Yeah. Oh my God. Let's see.
Well, thank God, because we end our podcast with the funny bad gig story, and we've yet to run out of them, and we get to run out of different ones too.
Yeah. And most times people are like, oh God, there's so many. Where do I got to whittle it down? Which one do I tell?
The average person tells 2.
Yeah. Yep.
The average person tells 2.
And that's actually become one of the more popular segments on the podcast, to the point where every year at the end of the year, we do a funny bad gig compilation. And it's usually 2 episodes where it's nothing but funny bad gigs.
And so far this year, the one we put out at the beginning of the year, this year, it's our most downloaded episode.
Yeah. Yep.
Because people love pain that we go through. They love to hear about the pain that we go through.
They love hearing about other people's pain.
I don't know if I ever told you guys the story. I've done a lot of bachelor parties, and I consider myself a really good bachelor party comic.
You are the best.
I working the crowd from the bachelor parties, and I'm doing one at the Edgewood Yacht Club, and this biker, he was 7 feet tall, huge guy. I weighed 250 at the time. He literally picked me up and had me in the air, and I had the mic, and I'm up in the air thinking, this guy is going to throw me out the window in the water, and I can't swim. So now I'm up in the air thinking I'm risking my life for a bachelor party. Finally, he puts me down. Everybody's laughing. The joke was on me that night. I was just glad to get out of there alive. You know what I mean? I've seen the guy several times since. He's from the area, and I waved to him. I don't, but I just keep walking. He's nuts.
John, I did a bachelor party one night for a motorcycle club, and I got Eddie Galvin to do it with me. And I went up first, and in the middle of my set, they shot a gun into the ceiling. And at first, I thought it was just like a blank gun until I saw actual powder fall from the ceiling where it broke through the sheetrock. They shot an actual bullet into the ceiling and it fell down. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no comeback to that. You don't go after the guy that disrupted your set with a live gun. You just keep going with your set and just keep plowing through. So I did. And I got done. I bring up Eddie, and he does his thing. And, of course, they loved him. And at the end of the show, the guy comes up to me, and he's all upset. And he's like, I fired a gun in the ceiling just to totally screw with you, and nothing. You didn't even react. I go, you call that a gun? It sounded like a cat pistol. And his buddy started giving him the hardest time. And that's how I finally got back at him. But at the time, I was absolutely crapping my pants. I'm like, it's a live gun here at the show.
People don't believe me. I worked at a prison for 36 years, and they say it must have been dangerous. I said, no. The comedy, I had more confrontations. When I started working the crowd at first for a while, I had people ready to kill me. I had the biker had me in the air, they're shooting guns in the air. I had more stuff happen at comedy shows
than
in a high security prison. That's John, how nuts it is. It's nuts.
I've told this story on the podcast before, but you remember Greg Wright?
Yeah.
Remember skinny Greg Wright? He was like this toothpick.
Yeah.
He and I got booked. We did 2 bachelor parties in one night. First bachelor party, we do it. We get done. The guys love us. They're like, you guys want to come out with us? We're going out. Come on. We're like, no, we got another show. Maybe later. We go do the second show. It's the same exact material, just a different crowd. They're yelling out Fraggle Rock because they said Greg looked like a Muppet and they wanted to hang him. There was a ceiling fan right above us where we were doing the set. And they said they wanted to hang him on the fan. Because if you remember Fraggle Rock, at the end of the show, there was a guy on the fan that would then fly off. So they were calling him Fraggle Rock, threatening to hang him from the fan and have him fly off. And then there was another show I did. It was the Contractors. And it was during the Joe Malacone crisis, the whole banking crisis. It was all these contractors. All their money was tied up in the savings and loan. And I'm doing a bachelor party. And halfway through, this guy pulls out a 20 and he goes, hey, here's $20 just to shut the F up. And I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, I pulled the 20 out of his hands. I go, hey, BJ's in the back room. You're first, sir. Come on, buddy. And the crowd went nuts. And afterwards, I went up to the guy and I was like, hey, here's your 20 back. He goes, no, you earned that. He goes, you handled it pretty well. Especially because my opening act, and I never mention the guy's name because he doesn't do comedy anymore. He moved out of state. But you know who the guy is, John, and I'll tell you off air. He's opening for me, and we had the Dave DiLorenzo special for the sound system. It was a guitar amplifier with a 6-foot mic cord. And he's on stage, so he's a couple of feet behind me, and he's doing his act, and they're booing him, they're yelling at him. And I'm adjusting the sound on the amplifier. And all of a sudden, I don't hear him through the amplifier. I hear him in my ear. And he's right next to me. And he goes, Ace, I can't do this. And he literally handed me the microphone and ran out the door. And never, I'm sure he did comedy after that, but he didn't do comedy at bachelor parties anymore. And then I had to go up and clean up. And that's when the guy...
They're not easy to do bachelor parties. They're not for everyone. For some reason, I found I like them. But...
Yep. 9 times out of 10, they go okay for me, but every once in a while, I just get a dud, and it makes me go, you know what? No amount of money is worth it.
I mean, back in the day, I remember there were bachelor parties. Sometimes I did 3 or 4 or 5 a weekend.
Yeah.
Literally, I'd go from bachelor party to on a Friday. I've done 3 in one night. I timed it where I had Scott at one, and I'd go on. Then I'd have somebody at another one, or Ace at another one. I'd run in on them, go all over the place. They were local. And I remember doing like 3 in a night bachelor parties. There were that many. There's not that many now like they used to be.
Right. No. You know why you do well at them, John, is because you talk to the crowd and you bust on them and you give them a hard time. And I feel like bachelor party guys, they don't want regular stand-up. They want it to almost be like a roast.
Yeah.
They want everyone to get picked on, everyone to get their balls busted, and you do that as part of your act, and you do it better than anybody. So you're perfect for that situation. A comic that's going to stand there and try to craft stories and jokes and weave is going to get eaten alive at a bachelor party. Because the first one I ever did, you booked me on, and with Skinny Greg Wright too. And and we get there, and he goes, hey, have you ever done a bachelor party before? And I go, no. And he goes, all right, you don't want to do regular material. They're not going to listen to you. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do then? Because I was not that long into it. I was a couple years in. He goes, we got a paperwork that John sends them, and we got a bunch of information on everybody. He goes, so we can just pull some stuff from this and pick on the guys and do stuff like that. So I had to do 20 up front, and then he did the rest. So I didn't have to do a lot. But thank God he told me that, because if I just went into the 20 minutes of jokes I had, they would have eaten me alive. I'll say this. I did okay at best. I'm giving myself credit saying that. I did okay. I survived it. And then he literally walked up with a piece of paper in his hand and said, okay, let's see who we want to talk about now. And they loved him.
Yep. Yeah.
So but it's a different audience. That's all.
Yeah. I've been able to get away with doing some regular material, but especially, I do a lot about being Italian. And if you're Italian in Rhode Island at a bachelor party, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a bunch of Italians. Yeah. But I find you can't do the regular set. You have to switch back and forth and gauge, like, okay, that joke went well, this one kind of bombed, this one didn't go as well. All right, now I'm going to go back to shitting on people for 5 or 10 minutes. And then you just go like John does. You go table to table. You use some stock lines, or you just make fun of people. And you know what's funny? John, does this happen to you? Someone sees you years and years later, and they tell you, do you realize that you called one of the guys at the bachelor party? Like, I called this guy Captain Quint from Jaws because he looked like him, and he drove he owned like a garbage company. So I was like, what does he get on top of the garbage truck, on top of the dump truck? And he's like, are you me hearties, And they said to this day, people still call him Quint because of that. When you call someone something and you give them a nickname, like you say, hey, you look at this, you look like Bill Nye, the science guy. People will call him Bill Nye for like 20 years, all because of that one ball
That's happened to me
moment,
a bunch of times. People have come up to me 5-10 years later and tell me, you called me this or you called me that.
I love
and
that.
A lot of guys will say, you did my bachelor party. And I'll say, are you still married? And it's about 50-50.
Yeah, same thing.
Some of the guys got divorced.
Yep.
What do, you know?
That's
I'm still known as the zigzag guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
But I've had a lot of fun with you guys.
Thanks, man.
Anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap it up? Anything else?
No. Just if you like podcasts, or even if you don't like podcasts, if you're into comedy, similar to what John and Jessica are doing here, we do on a podcast, and we interview comics from all throughout New England. Some who've moved out of New England. We've had some from LA. We're really trying to expand it. But if you want to learn about like what gets people to be as crazy as the 4 of us are, to get up on a stage and make people laugh, check out Behind the Funny. That's what it's all about. It's really just a conversational
it's a great podcast.
show.
One of the best. It's turned into one of the best. You guys do a great, awesome job, Scotty. Ace.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great having you, Ace. Scott, you got anything to say? You want to wrap things up?
No, I'm just I'm looking forward to, like you, John. I want things to open up again. I want to get back to going to Spiritos and hanging out with you and doing shows.
Yeah.
You guys come out here and doing all those things again. And, as much as I like being on stage and performing, it's hanging out with all of you guys at the shows before and afterwards and stuff. That's fun too. And, now that I got to spend some time talking to Jess, I want to do some shows with you and, stuff like that. And the hang is what I miss more than anything.
I missed that a lot.
That hanging out is just, oh my God. I didn't realize how important that was to me mentally and psychologically until I didn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, we just found that out too with even the podcast, because we were doing the podcast remotely as well.
Yeah.
And last night we had our first guest since the Dave DiLorenzo tribute right? Scott?
Tony Capobianco, which is the week after the Dave DeLorenzo.
Right, but the last time we had a group of people was when John, when we did that,
that was a good tribute to Dave. That was a good tribute.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
But last night we had PJ Thibodeau in, and I said, I'll leave it up to you if you want to do it by phone. You want to come in? He goes, I prefer hanging with people, and it was great. We cracked a few beers. We had some fun. It was, it made it feel like even though we didn't do a show together, we were hanging together and doing the hang. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
That's what's great.
It was awesome.
I remember doing a bachelor party with PJ when he started out, and me, him, and Eddie Galvin.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I think I gave PJ his first paid gig, too.
I think you gave most everyone their first paid gig. I'm probably the only exception because
You started before me.
I started during your hiatus. You had done it. And then
I did it in '83. I quit for 8 years, and I think you came in somewhere in there, and then I came back in '91. Yeah,
I came in '89. So yeah, but Brian Deary was my first paid gig at a place called Windsor's, which is now Spain and Narragansett.
That was a hell gig, they say.
That was a hell gig. Yeah, it was not a fun gig, but it was. I worked there with Joe Rogan and Ed the Machine Regine were co-headliners on that show.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. I used to work with Rogan a lot before he moved away. I mean, I don't think he'd remember me, but yeah.
I was supposed to be in a show with Dairy booked me with Joe Rogan headlining. I didn't know. He just said he's a mass comic. He's dirty. And I was, looking forward to the show. And then like a few days before, for whatever reason, I got canceled. And I never wound up working with him. Didn't know who Joe Rogan was, and now he blows up.
Now look at him.
Yeah,
Speaking of podcasts, he's got the biggest podcast around.
Yeah.
Got a $100 million deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great having you guys on. Jessica, my co-host, you got anything to say to wrap up this pandemic Zoom or loser show?
I miss you.
I miss you too.
Us?
Yeah.
Well, listen, on your staycation, I got a pool. You want to come over and go swimming? Come on over.
I do. But do I have to wear a mask in the pool?
No, you don't have to wear a mask in the pool. Just outside.
You can get your nails done by the pool. We'll
get your nails done. There you go.
We'll hire the girl to go there and do your nails. And Scotty will be in the cheerleading
outfit,
dancing,
serving beer to her in my cheerleader outfit.
Yes.
And I'll be trying to pee on Scotty through my clothes.
Can I have your mandala tapestry that's behind you, Scott?
What's that?
You don't like this?
So you can take it off the wall and mail it to me so I can have it at my house.
This is my wife's office. She generously let me use it. So
we love it, Scotty.
I am not allowed to touch anything in here but stay in my seat with my computer in front of me, and that's it.
Scott,
with that background, you look like Willard Scott on crack. You know what I mean? You look like you're ready to do some weather in the Middle East.
John needs a stage bad.
Yeah,
John
no kidding.
Really
look at
bad.
you. Look at you, brother. You look like you're going to start announcing the 100-year-old birthdays for the Smuckers people.
And you guys are going to leave it at that because we can't top that. Jessica Leigh, my co-host, Scott Higgins, Aceto, Behind the Funny, some great podcasts coming up. What do you do, once a week?
Yep.
Once a week. Every
week. So look out for those podcasts. They're awesome. I want to thank you guys for coming on. You guys have been awesome. I've had a lot of fun. And
Thanks,
everybody stay healthy. And we got to get back on stage. Stay healthy. God bless you guys and girls. God bless you guys.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks.